Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again, and it does appear that Wuthering Waves and Kuro Games have graced us with more news than ever when it comes to the upcoming 3.4 collaboration with Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Yes, we have gotten the attribute and the weapon type of both the new collab characters, Rebecca and Lucy. And you're probably going to be very, very, very surprised by what the final results are, but we're here to have a bit of a conversation when it comes to what actually goes into their attribute and their weapon type, how potentially free-to-play friendly they're going to be given their classifications, and believe me when I say this, they should be really, really, really free-to-play friendly, and whether or not you should be planning for them as add-ons to your account. Because one thing that's very, very, very clear is that units, 5-star units in Wuthering Waves are pretty expensive, but another thing that we already know is that we are going to be getting a copy of Rebecca for free during the collab. So you likely want to be able to have some insight knowing that you're going to get this character, right? Oh, what are some of my options moving forward? That's going to be the focus of the video today, and of course, it probably makes the most sense for us to start on the unit that everyone is guaranteed to get, Rebecca. So this is really, really, really interesting, right? Because Rebecca is going to be an electro pistol user. Yes, that is a classification. That is a pairing of attribute and weapon type that we actually have not gotten in Wuthering Waves yet. And if we're going to be entirely honest over here, electro is simply an attribute that hasn't gotten a lot of attention in the lifespan of the game. This was the last Electro character released, ladies and gentlemen. The last Electro character was fucking Augusta in version 2.6's first half. And then preceding Augusta, we had Zhang Liao in version 1.2. And then before Zhang Liao, we had Yinlin in 1.0. Yeah, some people might be talking about Buling and stuff. We're talking about limited units over here, and Buling's like a healer. You get it. It shouldn't really be that relevant in the discussion. We've only had 3 Electro 5-stars in the history of the game. And if we're going to be honest here, Augusta is like a fraud. Augusta would have preferred to be like any other attribute other than Electro. And her being Electro kind of means absolutely nothing in terms of team compositions. So, yeah, think about it this way. She would have preferred to have been Fusion 100%, but that would have been a massive buff to her. And so really, the only, like, attribute-to-attribute pairing we have in this game is Yinlin and Zhang Liao. Yinlin's outro skill is as follows. 20% Electro damage amp, and then 25% Liberation damage amp. Combines for 45% for good old Zhang Liao, who's an Electro Liberation damage dealer. There is no other way at all to buff Electro damage in this game. It is Yinlin's outro skill, and that's pretty much fucking it. And when we don't know what type of damage Rebecca is going to be, that means that in terms of like team compositions, team building, unless Rebecca is like a sub DPS or like a healer, if she's a main DPS, I'm gonna be honest, there's not really that much prep, or there's not really that much like pre-existing knowledge a person can use to like preemptively build some team comps. Because I think the main takeaway that we're seeing over here is that Rebecca's damage type matters a lot more than her attribute in this situation. And so if you're more of an account that has like well-rounded buffs, for example, covering echo skill damage amplification with a character like Chu Yan, or covering, let's just look over here, liberation damage with a character like Lene, or covering heavy attack damage with a character like Yuno, that's more likely a better way for you to be able to prepare for Rebecca, because like I said before, Electro doesn't have pretty much any support at all. Just something to keep in mind. Now, though, you might be having a bit of a question over here. What about the other side of Electro? Because there has been one debuff introduced to the game, one negative status, that only one unit in the game actually has, and that's Buling. Buling has the ability to actually apply Electro Flare in pretty high quantities, but the end result of her design is that she's not really giga meta right now, because she's kind of looking for somebody that deals resident skill damage and also deals Electro Flare damage. Maybe that is what Rebecca's kit is going to focus on, but likely not, because having a collab unit be one of the only appliers of a negative status, that seems a little bit rough. That seems a little bit crazy. But Booling is rerunning with Denya, so in the next phase's banners, so maybe that's where it's supposed to be coming from. As you can probably see over here, being Electro isn't necessarily a big sort of buff for Rebecca. If I'm going to be real over here, Electro is one of the quote-unquote worst attributes that she could have been, because we just don't have a lot of pre-existing Electro resources or like specific Electro buffers, with the only one being Yinlin, and chances are you might not actually even have her. If Rebecca was something like Fusion instead, or Arrow instead, she'd have way more support in the form of characters like a Lupa, who'd crazy buff Fusion, or maybe even like a Chakota, who would crazy buff Arrow. But in this circumstance, right, we've kind of got neither, and that's one of the debuffs of being Electro. That's why I said Augusta would have preferred to have been anything but Electro. Now, though, it's time for us to have a bit of a conversation, and that's going to be on weapons. And this is where we're really going to focus on the type of role that Rebecca might play on teams, because no matter what role she plays, unless she's like some alternate scaling healer that like scales off ER or defense or HP, you should be good when it comes to weapon choices. And the reason for that is very simple. The standard banner in Wuthering Waves is the most broken thing I've ever seen for specifically pistol users. Yes, and whatever we're talking about in this discussion over here, you can just go ahead and apply it to Lucy as well. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If either of these two pistol characters, right, Lucy's one too, if either of them are a sub DPS that focuses on buffing another character, well, guess what? You'll have Static Mist in the game, been available since 1.0. We're also getting a shit ton of pulls when it comes to standard pulls every update. At R1, this thing already has amazing stats, 10% attack buff, ER, all of that goodness. And then at R5, assuming you get multiple copies of it, which wouldn't be that surprising either, you increase that buff by up to 100%, all the ER as well. And then, just at like max stats overall, you don't need to R5 it for these stats over here. Some of the best blend of offensive stats you can have in the game. Great base attack and good crit rate too. Next though, what if the character isn't really a sub DPS, right? What if they're more so focused on doing their own damage, right? Lucy and Rebecca, they both got like, one's got the mono wires, the other one has like 17,000 million guns, right? She's got a bunch of guns. What if she's meant to be more so a DPS? Well, then you got this bad boy, where its base stats at max level, pretty much the same as Static Mist, but instead you get crit damage. And then, for its passive effect, buffs attack by 12%, which is really good for damage. And then after anybody uses a Tomb Break, believe me when I say this, everybody in the game can use a Tomb Break, and pretty much at good times. Whenever a Resonator in the team casts a Tomb Break, it grants 20% all attribute damage bonus to the wielder. And guess what you can do, ladies and gentlemen? You can R5 this bad boy as well. And then that'll increase the attack to 24%, and then the Tomb Break boost to all damage 30%. And guess what? It's really easy to R5 this bastard as well, because even though it's a new 3.0 standard weapon, bro, they have been shitting out standard pulls at us like crazy. I'm just gonna be honest over here. I have 80 right now, brother. I got 80 standard pulls right now. I just haven't really been spending them. And I've already pulled like, I think like 2 or 3 of the new standard weapons. Well, there you go, right over there. And I've got a pretty long log too of other stuff that I've already gotten. That's what's available when it comes to the weapon side. You've got a solid option over here if you're a main DPS oriented character. And so whatever role these two might have, it's already covered. And the only situation, ladies and gentlemen, where something can maybe go wrong is if they can't use either of these. But chances of the character not being able to use Static Mist, it's almost 0 because the stats it gives are amazing. And the chance of not being able to use Phasic Homogenizer or Static Mist, that has to be actually 0%. And the only way that, you know, slightly higher than 0% rate is going to apply is if, when it comes to the scaling of Rebecca or Lucy, Kuro Games does something fucking weird and makes them like Cardathea or Brant, where Brant, despite dealing attack damage, scales more so off ER. And Cardathea despite dealing a shit ton of damage, she more so scales off of HP. So, kind of like the situation that we're looking at over here, ladies and gentlemen, is that I think Kuro Games has learned a pretty big lesson from the amount of people upset by the defense and HP scaling of Brant and Cardathea, and they just haven't really done anything similar since. I think the most similar thing that they've done is like Sigrika, which, to be fair, Sigrika's ER requirement is fucking insane, but if you do end up capping it out, she does a fuck ton of damage, and it's almost absurd. So, yeah, I guess we'll kind of just have to see what route they decide to go. But the weapons being pistols in this circumstance, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best things ever when it comes to these units' design. Now, though, we need to have a bit of a different conversation. We only took a look at the standard weapons. We've established that they should be good in pretty much all circumstances. What about, though, the other weapon types that are in the game? So let's just do a quick review of all the other 5 stars that are good to go. Spectrum Blaster. Yeah, I don't think Rebecca or Lucy are going to apply Toon Strain or Toon Rupture Shifting during their basic attacks. If they were able to, this would be an insane weapon because it buffs the team. Who knows, right? You're also going to have Lux and Umbra. I don't really know about this one. Maybe one of them deals heavy attack damage. Maybe one of them deals Echo skill damage. That'd be cool. But this one covers heavy attack and Echo skill damage. This one covers basic attack damage. This one covers resonance skill damage. So what you're going to notice over here is that we don't have a weapon type or a pistol yet that covers liberation damage. So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all if either of those 2 new characters, Rebecca or Lucy, their signature weapons are a bit more focused on liberation damage, perhaps. Or maybe they're just a bit more general. They kind of like focus on all damage types. There's also a chance, right? Maybe Lucy and Rebecca, they're both the same damage type, and then they like share a signature or something like that. Who knows? That could be the case too. But that would be a little bit tacky. That'd be a little bit boring. So I'm not really going to expect that one. Like I've been mentioning before, I think one of the new characters is probably going to be a liberation damage pistol user. Because then otherwise, we would actually have a signature that covers pretty much all the other damage types in the game. Legitimately every other damage type. I think the Liberation's the only one that's left, because heavy, Echo skill, resonance skill, basic, they're all kind of factored into here already. We have a lot of pistols in the game. 4-star options, yeah, we're not really going to talk about any of these except Cadenza. Maybe one of them's like a healer. If that's the case, that would be crazy, but I really don't think that's going to occur. How about their Echo sets? This is going to be my take on their Echo sets. I hope they do something similar to what they did for Crown of Valor over here. And if you're wondering about what Crown of Valor is, that is the Echo set that goes onto Yuno and Augusta. I'm hoping that they just do something similar over here, where, you know how Crown of Valor works? It's kind of like a DPS set that both of them end up running, and then they like share the field. I'm hoping that we have something like this so that we don't end up with 2 more unique sets for 2 collab characters that probably aren't rerunning again. But when it comes to using older sets, I mean, maybe Rebecca's a Havoc Bane sub-DPS applier and then she uses Thread of Severed Fate. That could be something, right? Or maybe Rebecca's like a Havoc sub-DPS and is meant to use Midnight Veil. That is something that could happen. But as you can see over here, there's not really a lot of Havoc sets in the game. Yeah, there's like Frolova set, but like, maybe Rebecca summons guns with echoes. Oh, she's Electro? I forgot. Oh, okay, even better then. Okay, she gonna use Void Thunder? Sorry, yeah, just cancel out that discussion. Is she just, because Void Thunder's the only Electro set in the game. Sorry, I was thinking she was Havoc for a second, because that would actually give things to talk about. Yeah, this is the only Electro set in the game. I don't think Rebecca's gonna use a 1.0 set. This is all she has. I'm serious, this is all she has. Void Thunder in the big 2026, that's what I'm saying. So, like, yeah, I know I was talking about Havoc sets before. That was on the bright side. Like again, I said being Electro isn't a buff. There's a reason why I said being Electro is not good. This is also one of the reasons why being Electro isn't good. Expect to farm a new set. Expect to farm a new set, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's the main thing that I'll say in regards to this. This is fucking diabolical. As you can probably see, most of the big pointers are focused around the fact that being Electro is not a good thing. The Sonata set is not good. The teammates are not good. Honestly, the future like viability of this unit, it is kind of called into question. And part of me makes me think that she has to either be overtuned or have a crazy unique effect or like crazy unique asset that she's bringing to teams for her to even be playable as an Electro character in the first place. Because that's just how bad Electro is as a whole. I kind of hope that she is like a support. I kind of do. Because if she's a main DPS, bro, what is she gonna what is she gonna get buffed by, man? I don't even fucking know at this point. We'll just have to see. I'm a little bit concerned about this. Now, let's go ahead. Let's go and see what Lucy's bringing to the table. So, like, I've already kind of, like, spoiled it, but Lucy's going to be the same weapon type as Rebecca. She's also going to be a pistol user. So, that entire conversation that we had when it comes to, like, the free-to-play weapons, the viability, main DPS versus sub-DPS, it's all going to apply to her as well. So, we're mainly going to be focusing on just her attribute. Spectro's also not good. Let me break down what I mean by Spectro is also not good. If you thought that, like, Electro wasn't getting a lot of support, Spectro doesn't have a lot of support, and the support that it has is really fucking bad. Like, so bad and so monstrously, like, not good for account expansion that despite being, like, the Spectro support, Confession Phoebe's only good with one character. And that's Zodi. And Zodi's only good with one character, Confession Mode Phoebe. So it's kind of just like you have these two carry the Spectro archetype, and then it like ends with them. Basically, it's like you just had the heir to your family, but then they were born without balls. That is what the Zodi negative status Phoebe Spectro team feels like. Like, there's no future ahead of them. It's kind of better if they're not on your account. And you can kind of just view Spectro as not having any support at all. Jinsei is like barely a Spectro character. She wants resonance skill damage amp, and she wants coordinated attacks of different attribute types. She doesn't really even count as a Spectro DPS, if we're gonna be honest. She wants people that aren't Spectro on her team. She doesn't exist. She doesn't exist. Better if you don't have them. If you have them, just think about this discussion is worse. Then you got Lene, who's basically not a Spectro character either. She just buffs liberation damage. And then you got Luke, who's kind of not really a Spectro character either. Basically what I'm saying is that Spectro is just like a damage type. There's no background support for the attribute other than some like free-to-play, like fucking, bro, the support I'm talking about over here, bro, it's like Spectro Rover, S6, minus 10% Spectro resistance. Ooh, amazing. And then like Verena, S4, 15% Spectro damage. That's the Spectro support in this game. If you're relying on this to be like your Lucy's buffers, go fuck yourself. You're completely screwed. Essentially, everything that I've been saying about like Electro not really having good support, Electro not really having good sets, so on and so forth, it's not as bad for the discussion over here when it comes to Lucy and her being Spectro. But think about it this way. You got Celestial Light, which is like, great, this thing is shit. 40% damage, great. Eternal Radiance, awesome. This set doesn't exist unless you're a Spectro Frazzle character. And then you got, right, a Gilded Revelation. You gotta deal basic attack damage, and your Liberation also needs to deal basic attack damage too. Otherwise, this shit doesn't do anything. She's hopefully gonna have a new set as well. Or, God forbid, what if Lucy is a Spectro Frazzle DPS that's meant to be Zodi but not dog shit? And her best in slot team is like Chisa, Confession Mode Phoebe, and then Lucy. How crazy would that be? How crazy would that be if she's like a Spectro Frazzle DPS but like Zodi but not shit? And then Chisa now has a Spectro Frazzle negative status team. Guys, I'm saying that could be something that they decide to do. And the crazy thing is that it would probably be the most healthy for the meta of this game. Because then you would just have Spectro Frazzle not being dog shit unless you quick swap. But then Zoni players can still have the chip on their shoulder of early onset arthritis. And they won't feel the need. They won't feel like Lucy ruined their character either. And it would also be another Chisa team as well. That could happen too. What I'm mainly saying is that when these attributes like Spectro and Electro have nothing right now in terms of overall support, the sky is truly the limit for what these characters are going to do. But I think the main sort of point that we need to emphasize is that when it comes to collaboration units, they typically end up doing something similar to what an existing unit already does in game. For example, when Kuro Games introduced their Dante and their Virgil PGR units, right? Those were the same as some existing fire and physical units that they had in PGR. They didn't really create a whole new type of character that came in and did a very specific thing. And so if I had to put my money on it, Lucy actually being a Spectro Frazzle DPS that's simply a side grade to Zoni that plays differently actually makes a lot of sense to me. Because then we don't end up stepping on the toes of the design philosophy in this game, what some of the future releases might do, so on and so forth. It's kind of like a reimagination, right, of an existing kit. And then when it comes to Rebecca, I'm going to be honest over here, right? What if she is also just the third recreation of Calcharo? What if they're just well, Zhang Liao was free. He was the upgrade to the free Calcharo. Let's make Rebecca the upgrade to the free Zhang Liao. That could be something that's done. Some people might be pissed off by it, but honestly, it would make a decent amount of sense to me. That way, the meta in the game doesn't, get turned over on its fucking head. And naturally, right, you still end up with playable characters because they're already going to work. Hey, who knows? But what I'm saying is that unlike a character releasing and they're Arrow or they're I don't know, Fusion, guys, being Spectro is not a buff. Being Electro is not a buff. And so essentially, I kind of am viewing that in advance as a bit of admission. Hey, these units are going to be here. These units are going to be cool. But don't expect these units to come in and be stupidly broken. And I don't think they need to be. I think that people will be pulling them regardless. But if they are broken, if they are ridiculous, if they are overpowered and they end up breaking the meta of the game completely, then let me know and I'll be very happy to eat my words. But I really think the opposite of that is going to happen. But regardless of how they're used, regardless of what's going to be involved when it comes to these characters, just know that they're probably going to be some of the most affordable ones to gear in the game, right? I'm doing all this, some could call it doom posting. I'm more so just talking about the facts, right? It doesn't matter how absurdly bad they are, even if they are bad. You're going to be able to gear them on a budget, and you're also going to be getting, remember, you're also going to be getting one of them for completely free. So it's kind of just I don't think you can stress too much about it either way. If we needed any justification for them not breaking the game, this would probably be one of the reasons why. That'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a bit shorter than usual this time, but when both the characters wield the same weapon type, it is what it is. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.